to those of you that are on YouTube. Happy to have you with us this morning. Hope you'll enjoy our presentation. It's entitled More About Soul, Part 3. In our exploration of the notion of the soul, we've been trying to present a very clear path so that each one of us might realize that we can live daily as a God-spirited soul right here on the earth. That's our goal. In fact, living this way, we would see it as simply a return to our primal condition. We're really going back home to where we have always been meant to be. And rather than seeing humanity as fallen, we just kind of see everyone as risen. And we're going back now to claim that destiny that we've always had, that we are creating souls. Each one of us is a creating soul in the body here on the planet. Before proceeding, though, into Part 3, more about soul, let me just briefly review Parts 1 and 2. In Part 1, we clearly presented that each one of us is an eternal soul. So as you're sitting here right now, not only are we human, but we really have an eternal soul. And we'll be talking about that. And more that eternal soul is giving guidance as to how we're moving forward. And then in Part 2, we talked about 3 very limiting assumptions, if you recall. The first limited assumption imposed on us, usually by well-meaning family, religions, and society, that realistically we're only limited human beings, rather than exploring the notion that we really are something much larger, that we really are an eternal soul in human form. And secondly, that you're only human and no one is perfect. And of course, that wonderful teaching by Plato, by Jesus, by the Buddhists, by the Hindus, by the Shendaos, very much summarized in Jesus' beautiful words, be perfect as your Heavenly Father is perfect, because you can, and you're made in the image and likeness, so why wouldn't you be when you know that we can? And then that third false assumption that you could not be content while on earth, that you kind of had to wait to die to get to heaven because earth was never meant to be some kind of nice place. It was meant to be a valley of tears, a test. Again, nicely refuted by Jesus when he said, well, you know, our very purpose is to bring heaven to earth. So that in the Lord's Prayer when he said, may the Father's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, well, we are the ones who bring that Father's will into manifestation here on the planet. So our goal is to be happy here, and I think more and more of us are happy, content, happy to be here, happy to be with each other here on the earth. Now with that little summary, what I'd like to do then is to move into Part 3, which is entitled More About Soul. The way that I'd like to do this is I'd like to utilize 2 Hindu categories, which are very, very interesting about what we're doing here on earth. And then what I'm going to ask us to do, and all of us to do together, is to say to ourselves, well, what are we getting out of those 2 categories? What's in it for me? I always felt when I would teach my classes in school that until you find out what's in it for you, you're never going to do something. But if you're finding out what's in it for you, then you begin to realize, well, if that's what's in it for me, maybe I want to try to do something just a little differently. So let's begin with those 2 Hindu categories, and always talking about, well, what's in it for me? Let's begin with the first category. In the Hindu view of life, the first category is what they call the path of desire. That each one of us, in a sense, is on a path of desire that focuses pretty much on our body and our situations within the world, meaning primarily that our thoughts and our emotions are tied to how we are physically and what's going on with all of the situations in the world. So that, in a sense, what is primarily real for you is your sense experience, how it affects your body, how things are affected by what's happening out there. Such knowledge puts us very squarely on the path of desire. Now, when you're on this path of desire, it kind of has two particular points, just kind of interesting things. The first one is the realm simply of physical pleasure. There are a lot of people who simply live for physical pleasure. Now, I'm not talking about booze, sex, drugs, and orgies, not talking about that, but just talking about pleasures in life, about food, sexuality, cars, vacation, a nice house, good relationships, happy friends, and so on. And when you look at something like that, a lot of people say, well, gee, what's in that for me? And there's a lot of things that are in it for you. Lots of nice things within the world. Although things do not always work out the way you would like them to be, even though there's a lot of nice things in that way. Sometimes your kids get in trouble. Sometimes you get in trouble. Sometimes relationships end. Sometimes you lose a significant other. Sometimes you grow older, become feeble, and then you die. You do not have a lifetime guarantee on your body or on the things in the world. Even when there is an elevated path of desire as to, in a sense, raising, in a sense, the bar of your personal happiness, even when you achieve wealth, fame, and power. And usually when people achieve wealth, fame, and power, we usually talk about, in a sense, a revision of the golden rule. Namely, the person that has the gold makes the rules. Even at that level in life, we're still subject to many of the aforementioned problems, from troubles to death. So you live a little longer, maybe a little bit better. By human standards, things are pretty good. You've done better than most other people, but then you're still simply susceptible to those very same problems of eventually passing, leaving it all here on the planet. And again, you begin to realize that your body does not have a lifetime guarantee. Well, with these things in mind, and I never want to paint a negative picture, but just trying to tell it the way it is, with these things in mind, you begin to understand why Helen Schuckman and William Thetford said there must be a better way. There just must be a better way, and there is when you are ready for it. Your karma, our past actions, will keep us in check until we're ready for it, until we're ready to grow. The wonderful news is that more and more of us are now ready for it. We're ready for it right here, right now. And again, I want to say, look at it and say, what practically can I get out of this new way? What's in it for me? So when we address this next notion of Hinduism, please say to yourself, well, what's in it for me? What would I get out of it? And see if what you would get out of this would be a lot better than simply what you would get out of the path of desire. Because until you see what benefits you, you're probably just going to revert back to the old stuff that was simply always there. The second path of Hinduism is called the path of renunciation. It's the path of renunciation. Now, renunciation simply means two things. The first one, very simply, is that you are, in a sense, renouncing the path of desire. That you're ready to go beyond the toys of life. You're just ready to move beyond the toys. Doesn't mean you're never going to play with them again. It just means that you're ready to move beyond the toys of life. That you're ready to move beyond simple physical pleasures. And that you're really ready to move beyond wealth, fame, and power. But it entails a change. It entails a big change. You have to change your sense of self. Your sense of self has to change from simply being a nice human being, a very nice person, to being able to see yourself much more as an eternal soul. your sense of self has to change. It is your soul that has a lifetime guarantee. Your sense of self has to change. You have to, in a sense, renew yourself. You have to focus on how big you are, how grand you are. This is not an easy thing to do because a lot of people in your life like to keep you down. They like to keep you limited. But the good news is that more and more of us are making such a change. We're making such a change in life. Now, to see this change occurring, what I'm simply suggesting is there are two things we have to address. The first one. The first thing I would just suggest to all of us here is we have received the call. We have received the call. What is the call? You're yearning to grow. You have outgrown the world of desire. It's not that it's bad, but you've just outgrown it. It no longer speaks to you. You've outgrown your physical self and your worldly self. I'll say it again. You've outgrown simply physical pleasures and worldly pleasures. You have answered the call to be your higher self. Or putting it this way, your observer perspective has changed. Your observer perspective has changed. You now see things as an eternal soul. You now see things from an eternal soul perspective. And no one can make you make that change. But whenever you make that change and you start seeing things differently, the observer self has changed from being a nice person to being now an eternal soul. Now, of course, you got to ask, what's in it for me? What's in it for me if I make this change and move in this direction and I have a different observer? I see myself from a different place. So let me just suggest 4 or 5 things. The first one is you're becoming your best self. You're finally becoming that best self that you've always known yourself to be, but sometimes have not achieved. More than anything else, you're nicer, you're kinder, you're more understanding, less rattled. People love to have you around. And probably more than anything else, I would say that we are becoming an evolutionary pathway for people in the world. So I was talking with Carol the other day, and we could say this with Pat and so on. So if I said to Carol, have you grown over the past years? You would probably say, of course. Of course. Then if I said to Carol again, would you like everyone in the world to be like you? Yes. Yes. That's a pretty nice thing, because more and more people in our groups feel this. We would like people to be like us. We would like people to be like us because we've changed. We've come to understand that learning and joy go hand in hand. We've moved from simply seeing ourselves as in a limited way to seeing ourselves as an eternal soul. We are our best self. The second thing I would just suggest to you is you don't have to give up any of your family and friends or any of the comforts you've had in life. Nothing is wrong with any of those. You're probably going to make your family and friends a lot better because you're going to bring a greater gift to them. Just think about that. You're probably being, from a soul perspective, seeing yourself differently. You kind of bring something better to everyone else. Barbara Marx Hubbard was very fond of saying that when you show up in life as your essential self, that's when you bring the very best of who you are to your family and friends. And there's nothing better that we can do than to show up as our best self so that we might raise the energy of those that are around us. I just find that that's true. And again, I just want to say, that's why people like to have you around. They do. you bring something nice, fun, enjoyable, uplifting. The third thing I would suggest is that once and for all, you're breaking the pattern of fear and worry and death. Fear, worry, and death. You're just beginning to understand that these are outdated ideas that are taking too much space in our heads. Fear, worry, and death. Remember, your soul has a lifetime guarantee. You're an eternal soul. You're here now creating beautiful music. You're here now creating beautiful lives, the good, the beautiful, and the holy. And then when you leave here, you'll still be an eternal soul wherever you're going to be. That there's no limitation to what we're able to do. And what we're able to do, especially now, is to discard what no longer fits. A lot of these things, it's not that they're bad, but they just don't fit anymore. We'd rather move into a higher vibration of life. The fourth thing I would suggest is just kind of interesting is you're beginning in a sense to see and to feel that there is a oneness with everyone in everything. You're beginning to realize that we are children of God. There is no more exclusion, and there's no more fear of being with others. We are coming in a sense from a place of oneness. This is just such a huge thing. The simplest notion sometimes we can say is that we're feeling good without feeling superior. We're just feeling good without having to feel superior. We feel good because, well, we're one with everyone and with everything. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to feel that presence within you and to know that you're one with everyone and with everything. We see people as child of God. So we have no problem with John Lennon's song, Imagine. We're doing that. We are moving in this direction. Imagine the world to be at one. Well, we are. We do. Doesn't mean everyone is, but we are. And we're moving more and more in that direction. I hope you're starting to get the drift. What's in it for me? The fifth thing that I would just suggest, and what's in it for you, is, and just to me, it just seems to be the most important thing, you're not waiting to die to be happy. You're just not waiting to get out of here to live. But you're starting to live here. And no matter where you're going to be, you're always going to be living because, well, you're an eternal soul. And that eternal soul is always going to bring you forth, no matter where you are or what dimension of life. We are here to bring heaven to earth. And we understand that we can do this even in difficulties, that we are here in a sense to really raise the level of consciousness. That each one of us, we're here with this notion that we're not only bringing heaven to earth, but we have this vision. We have this way of looking at things. Paramahansa Yogananda called it the coming of the Christ, which was simply the coming of a new consciousness. Don't you think you're part of a new consciousness? I mean, truly, don't you feel that you're not the way you used to be, but you're moving into a new, higher consciousness? Jesus said, well, bring heaven to earth, whatever you want to call it. But I think now we're learning to move forward, and we see ourselves as that eternal soul that's moving in a large vision, a sense of oneness with everyone and everything. We're tough as nails when we have to be, but most of the time we're just loving and kind and helpful and nice. So let me just say in conclusion that I hope you would say, well, what's in it for me? And I hope you would be able to say that what's in it for me as an eternal soul far outweighs what's in it for me than simply as a limited human. We're done with a lot of the toys. We're moving up, in a sense, to adult joys, adult entertainment, adult understanding. It's just such a wonderful, wonderful thing to live this way, to be happy and to be true in this energy. So let me again just conclude with those words with which I've concluded the last 3 sessions, namely, the secret of success in life is always knowing who you are. We do. We do. We know who we are, and we're living this way. We are lights that are going for it. We are going for heaven, no longer enamored by the complexities that take us away. So with that in mind, let me now bring you into meditation.
Let go of the
Shore, and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, flow into the mystery. You have all you need, it's all inside of you. Just close your eyes and breathe, and know that you are safe. Let go of the shore, and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, float into the mystery. No need to make a plan, your heart will be your compass. Just lift your sails in faith and trust that you will arrive. Let go of the shore, and let the water carry you. Let go of the shore, float into the mystery. It is such a joy to lead you into the meditation, especially focusing in on the intention. It's all inside of us. It's always been inside of us. It's inside of us now. And it's our joy to bring out that which is inside, to be expressive of the outside. Fully now dedicate yourself to this meditation. Let's begin the meditation by just taking a few simple breaths. Always the pathway forward, your natural breathing rhythm, nothing forced, but focused. And as you do so, just notice your body relaxing, your mind beginning to settle, and your soul coming to the fore. Please begin. And as you continue your breath, if you would just use this set of guide words, on the in-breath, just say to yourself the word calm. On the out-breath, the word flow. Breathe in calm, exhale flow. Concentrate, focus. If a thought comes in, let it pass. Please continue. And I just ask that you sit and continue the breath. And then I'm going to ask you to notice two things. But just continue the breath. Stay focused. Would you notice, first of all, how calm you feel? Just within 2-3 minutes, how peaceful you feel. And just notice that sense of calmness, of inner peace. Feel that deeply. Would you notice how good this feels? There's just something about this inner you, this peace within you. It just feels so good. It's like you're back home again. Just notice again how calm, serene, how good this feels. This is me. This is me. Now I'm going to ask you to notice a second thing. This inner peace has an attention point. It's not just amorphous, but it has an attention point. That attention point to your inner peace is you. This is your eternal soulness. This is your new observer self. Would you be willing to say to yourself, this is me. This is me. Would you clearly see that this observer point of your soul it's not thinking about it in your head. It's not taking your guidance from the world, but rather it's seeing from the inside out. You've changed your sense of self. I'll say it again. You've changed your sense of self. You've changed. Now from this place, this awareness within you, we're going to be singing the prayer of St. Francis and blessing to the world. I believe pages 19 and 17. But would you sing them, or just even listen to Maureen sing them from this place and see the difference that it makes?
Of your peace, where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your healing power. And where there's doubt, true faith in you.
Make me a channel of your peace.
Where
There is despair in life, let me bring hope.
Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy.
O Master, grant that I may never see
So much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul.
Make me a channel of your peace.
It is in parting that we are part of, in giving of ourselves that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life. Make me a channel of your peace. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are and all you do is a blessing to the world. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are and all you do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are and all we do is a blessing to